Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Hun Your Geek is showing. And today we're going to be celebrating Spider-Man's 60th anniversary. Joining me for this episode is some random guy, Jessup Braithwaite.
Hello, it's good to be back.
Yeah, we're back at the podcasting bullshit, doing what we do, worst or best, depending on your opinion. But yes, as stated, this is Spider-Man's 60th special. Well, I say special, it's just, we're talking about Spider-Man being 60 at this point. So,
good God.
We'll run with it.
Spidey with the bus pass.
Pardon?
Spidey with the bus pass.
Oh, yeah, you don't web swing no more. You kind of just go, oh, dear.
Yeah.
More of a web trickle than a web shoot.
Yeah, oh God, it started already, hasn't it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Old habits die hard.
But yes, we'll do some quick news that kind of ties into the theme of the show. I will try and splice in some pictures during the edit of this, so hopefully you'll see some pics, people, but hopefully YouTube won't kill me for doing it. But anyway, the news is that Hasbro, literally like as we were planning this episode out, decided to announce they're doing a whole range of Spider-Man 60th anniversary figures, including a Amazing Fantasies Spider-Man that comes with the web wings, and it's got the classic comic book artwork down the side of the box. A Mary Jane 2-pack. Well, I say it's Mary Jane. It's the Spider Island version of Mary Jane, where she's in the Spinneret costume. I'm hyped for that Spider-Man figure in that pack in particular because, as we've talked about this in chat, Guy, it comes with the toe joint, so you can finally get that actual classic Spider-Man stance in action figure form, something that it's sorely needed for a very long time. But I'll try and post pics here. But anyway, quickly moving on.
Oh, it has to be said before we move on, I did do a squee at the 60th anniversary Spider-Man with the web wings and got a very funny look off my wife.
Oh, I can imagine. It is a very funny thing that these little plastic representations of our favorite comic book characters can elicit such squeals of delight from us.
Oh my God, they do.
It's such a strange thing being an action figure collector that a Spider-Man is announced and you go, oh my God, I need it. Like it's just such a strange thing to do. But anyway, moving quickly on, like we said, celebrating Spider-Man's 60th here today. We're going to talk about the cartoons, the comics, the games, the films, the current films, the older films. We may even go, a little bit off track and talk about the Japanese Spider-Man, which apparently, and I only heard this today, rumors are he's going to appear in the next Into the Spider-Verse film.
I thought it was in the first one. Because there was the little girl, wasn't it, with the big robot?
Yeah, no, but I mean the one based on the 70s TV series.
Right.
Yeah, the one with the giant robot.
Yeah.
Apparently the rumors are he's going to appear in the next Into the Spider-Verse. That's rumors. I don't know how true it is. I was watching a few things and I was like, that might be a talking point. That might be a talking point.
But, it's either that or we talk about Bollywood Spider-Man.
Well, or Turkish Spider-Man, who literally throws a fishing net at people. But I thought what we'd do to start off with is talk about kind of how both of us discovered Spider-Man and the influences thereafter. So I'll go first. It's my show.
Good.
But I think my first real introduction to Spider-Man was, I can't really pin it down to one specific thing. I know that in the mid-90s, there was a couple of things kind of circulating around all at the same time, and being a bit of a gamer back then, and also, liking cartoons, being a kid and reading some comic books. I didn't read a lot back then. Dyslexia got in the way. But I did read some comic books back then. And so I was exposed to Spider-Man in a couple of different points. One being on the Sega Master System, going back many years, was Spider-Man versus the Kingpin.
Wow.
Yes, very, very, very bad video game of Spider-Man. But that was one kind of a little exposure to it. And I was like, it's a video game. It didn't really tell me much about the character. It didn't really blow me away. It didn't wow me.
There's only so much 8-bit can tell you.
Exactly. Back then, it was, video games weren't what they are now, which we will get to the Insomniac Spider-Man. But for me, what really kind of got me proper hooked into Spider-Man, and it's the two things, they go hand in hand, but it was really the thing that got me with it. Because I knew Spider-Man existed due to the video game, I was in Woolworths with a friend one lovely sunny afternoon during the summer, and we're looking at the latest release toys that they've got coming out. And on the shelf, there's this wall of Spider-Man figures. And all it says is Spider-Man, the animated series. And I'm like, there isn't one.
What now?
The only one I could remember at that time was like the old cartoon. The one that's been memed to death at this point. Like, I knew Spider-Man from that as well. But again, that was only on TV when I was like very, very young. So it's not, I can't really connect with that version of Spider-Man. It's a little just ever so slight out of my age range. But the 90s animated series, when I saw those figures, it was just like, oh, yeah, that was, there's a new Spider-Man thing coming out. And sure as not,
so Woolworths spoiled you.
Pardon?
Woolworths spoiled you.
I know, the motherfuckers, they spoiled it for me. But literally a couple of weeks later, on Sky One, Fox Kids, Spider-Man the Animated Series starts up.
Oh,
it blew me away. I was hooked from episode 1, and it really did help that one of the action figures that you could buy in Woolworths at the time came with a VHS cassette that had episode 1, Night of the Lizard, as a freebie. So of course I bought that figure. I had pocket money, I bought it, and that was my introduction to that version of Spider-Man. And even to this day, I love that cartoon. I love the characters, the stories. Just, it hits all the right notes. Okay, it changes some character origins around a little bit, i.e. Venom changes that around a little bit. The whole Gwen Stacy thing is not there. They replaced it with Mary.
Well, that's the thing,
For obvious reasons, they had to do it a certain way, but we're going off track. But that was really my kind of intro into Spider-Man. And then I'd see like the comics and things like that in like local news agents. So whenever I had the spare money, I'd pick up the comic books. I read a lot of the Clone Saga, which is why the Scarlet Spider is actually one of my favorite Spider-Man kind of variants. Because again, at that very impressionable age, sort of 12, 13, going on 14, reading these comics. And at the time, comics were being much more geared towards older readers as well. Like, the Maximum Clonage storyline and all that kind of stuff was just batshit insane. And
it was.
Not really favorably looked back on, but there are some standout characters, the Scarlet Spider being one of them. Just the hoodie design, just one of my favorite variants.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I love. That hoodie is just cool.
But that was kind of my exposure to Spider-Man. So, Guy, we'll throw it over to you now. What was your exposure of Spider-Man?
Well, for that, we have to go further back in time.
That's another episode, shit.
That is another episode.
We're predicting the future.
Spoilers. So we have to go back further. I started watching Spider-Man with Amazing Friends.
Oh, yes.
Folks, I am that old.
It's funny you should mention that. Several months ago, Hasbro did actually release figures of, I want to say Sunfire from
something.
Starfire.
You mean Firestar?
Firestar. That's the one. It's been a long time since I watched that show. I did watch it, but it's been a very long time since I watched it. But they did actually do a figure of her.
Disney Plus. Get on it.
I know, but I'm watching the animated series first, the one I love more.
Well, we'll
Don't throw
get to
shade
that
at me,
more.
bitch. I'm getting
But
around
yeah.
to it. I'm covering all the Spider-Man stuff. But yes, Hasbro have done a figure of that. So if you are a fan of that show,
I know. I have seen it.
if you're a fan of the
want it.
show, you can pick up that little collection for yourself. There is a box set.
I do want it, but you know, there's someone in the room that's listening, so you know. But yeah, I started on that and I loved it. Everything about it was brilliant. The incidental music was brilliant. The theme tune was brilliant. The animation, for the time, was first rate.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And for me, that was my jam for years. Along
And
with
let's
the comic.
not forget narration by the man himself, Stanley.
What else? Stan the
God,
Man, yes,
God rest his soul.
Stan, we love you.
Yeah.
And you know, of course, forward a few years later, and of course, the aforementioned 90 series comes on. I'm like, okay, I'll watch that. I do love me some Spidey. Let's see if it's as good. Yeah, first episode. I'm like,
Yeah, it's
blew me
hooked you
away.
in. It's hooked you in.
Oh God, yeah. It's still my favorite.
Yeah,
Spidey cartoon out of all of them that have come.
it is for a lot of people. I mean, I've actually seen like the DVD box set of, I think it's all 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah, it's prohibitively expensive.
The last time I saw it was in CEX in Tamworth.
Mm.
They wanted £165 for it.
It cost you more than that on Amazon.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I was like, if it's going for that much in here, how much is it online brand new? So yeah, that just goes to prove its popularity. There have been cartoons since that one, and they have been very good. I mean, I did watch for quite a time. I watched Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man on Disney XD.
Oh yeah, I saw some of that
because it sort of tied into the MCU, but it kind of didn't. Like there was characters from the MCU that popped up within it, but it wasn't directly tied to the It was a weird thing they were doing. But I did like that one. But I think that the storylines just, especially towards the arse end of that series, it was a case of jumping the shark with a shark riding a shark. It just got too insane too quick, and it was just like, where is this going to go to the point where like it doesn't even feel like it's Spider-Man anymore? That's my personal opinion, but I totally agree. I thought it was quite good. There have been a few in between that were okay. I've only seen an episode or two here and there, and I've been like, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, as Simon pointed out in episode 1, the Neil Patrick Harris Spider-Man series. Yeah. I've never actually seen it, so I can't comment on that one. But yeah, that pretty much covers the topic of Spider-Man cartoons. We literally just covered them all. Yeah. Well,
Spider-Verse, but we can get to that.
Well, yeah, that's more of a film, not a series. We're talking animated. We'll talk about the shows, the cartoon TV shows that we watched growing up, not the stuff that's out now. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, I'd have to say, for me, what really drew me in with the 90s show, especially, was it tread that line very, very carefully between how adult they could go with the storylines and how much they had to, I don't want to say dumb it down, but how much they had to change the story to make it more child friendly. Like the whole thing with Morbius. The whole thing with Morbius, even today, is a massive bone of contention with fans. Yeah. Like it's because that's so many guidelines. Yeah, and I completely get that, you know, the showrunners and the writers and everything, their hands were tied by the board of censors. There was only so much they could do. Like Blade, like I was surprised that Blade appeared. I was especially here in the UK, round about at the time that those episodes were showing here in the UK, the Blade film was hitting the cinemas. Yeah, I remember, like, you know, mid 97 watching Spider-Man, and Blade pops up. And then I'm in a toy shop, and there's part of we'll get to the action figure line, but there was a sub line within the animated series line called Vampire Wars. Blade was a part of that figure set. And I'm like, okay, so he's in the Spider-Man show. He's been in it enough to get his own action figure as part of the line.
Yeah.
And now there's this film out. Is it all part of the same thing? And then I started seeing that the film, like I was 13 at the time. This film comes out and it's rated 18 here in the UK. And it's like, okay, so this obviously it's the same character, but why is that an 18? And that led me into the larger, darker side of the Marvel universe. And I think that's one thing we can segue very nicely into with this is how much Spider-Man has actually, so how much Spider-Man is a gateway drug.
Oh my God,
into the larger Marvel universe, because for better or worse, I think from my personal perspective, I've always seen Spider-Man as the Marvel mascot, the face of Marvel.
Well, yeah, he was part of their branding for God knows how many years.
I remember, I can't remember what show it was, so don't hate me for this, but I remember like on the end credits of shows that were done by the Marvel Animation Studios, some of those, you'd see like Spider-Man web Spider-Man on top of the Marvel logo. So for me, Spider-Man was always the face of Marvel. You know,
Transformers, I think, had that logo. I think some of Generation 1 had that logo.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's very much like he was the face of Marvel, and to me, or pretty much always will be.
Yeah.
And give me 2 seconds, I just need to take a drink.
Yeah. Gary's had a drink.
But yeah, I think especially like with the animated series, with all the different characters that popped up in like a lot of people said that was the original Spider-Verse. You had the multiple different Spider-Men, you had the team ups with Iron Man, Captain America, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, all that kind of stuff. And for people who were just watching the cartoon, they didn't have any other wider knowledge, would watch that cartoon and they'd see the X-Men pop up, which would lead to the X-Men animated series. Then you watch the X-Men animated series, and that would inevitably lead you into the comic books. And that was how it was for me. Like, because of the animated series, it made me want to pick up the comic books. And because I read the comic books and there was the crossovers and things like that, it really is rabbit hole syndrome. The minute you open that, you're going into a rabbit hole you get lost in, because it spreads so far out.
Oh, of course. I mean,
with Spider-Man,
how many villains?
With Spider-Man in particular. Sorry, carry on.
How many villains have appeared in Spidey from other books?
Exactly. Well, I mean, Kingpin is the big bad guy in the animated series, but in the comic books, I believe Kingpin was more of a Daredevil threat, like he is in the Netflix show. It was very rare that
that was very much that.
Exactly. So, you know, it's very much like you start reading about Spider-Man, you're going to inevitably lead into the wider universe. And yeah, it's just, that's my opinion.
Fucking clever.
It's clever. It's clever fucking marketing. But right, we will quickly jump forward here, and I'm going to go with favorite storylines, not just in the comic books, but in any media that you've come across for Spider-Man, whether it's the films, anything, and we'll talk about that.
Excellent. Okay, I will go with the clones. The Clone Saga was just fantastic.
It was for its time.
It's the first thing you got to go to.
It is. I mean, you've got obviously the Peter Parker Spider-Man, the Ben Reilly Spider-Man, who is the Scarlet Spider, and then in the comic books took over from Pete because he retired for some time, and then you've got the
moved to Portland.
Yeah, then you've got the bad clone, which was Kane, who became the second Scarlet Spider. So there's been a few characters that have spun off from that storyline that are still popular and going now. I mean, the Scarlet Spider, both versions of the Scarlet Spider got a costume in the PS4 game.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know,
that's which one I use.
Yes, I tend to use those as well. But I think for me, one of my kind of favorite storylines, it's hard to pick one. It really is hard to pick one with Spider-Man. So I'm gonna go with, we'll do 3 each, we'll back and forth it, right?
Yeah.
For me, one of my favorites from the animated series is the Neogenic Nightmare.
Oh yeah.
That was my favorite thing, not just because of the story that it told, but because it was one of the longest stories that they told.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because I think
they spun it out.
Because it crossed over from one season into another. It was a very long, drawn out thing. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I love the character Man Spider. Introduced in the animated series. And when you're young and you watch that very scary kind of storyline unfolding, where first he's getting all these pains and then he gets the 6 arms and then he fully mutates.
Yeah.
It's just like the way that was all put together, the way that was shot, like what I say shot, the way it was animated, but the way the director storyboarded it and put it all together, the way the lighting goes, it's just, when you're a kid, that's scary. And you don't expect that from a Spider-Man cartoon. So it was very powerful and it hit me at, very, very, very hard. But that's one of my favorites from the animated series. So either your thoughts on that or we can jump onto your next one.
Oh no, it was fantastic. I mean, just it's like you say, when he gets the 6 arms and he's trying to hide it and stuff like that.
And they brought the Punisher into it at that point as well, which
yes, they did.
I was surprised by.
Weirdly
enough, I knew the Punisher more than I knew Spider-Man at that point, because I had read a couple of the Punisher comic books, and on one of the school holiday nights when my dad let me stay up late, it was just me, him, and a takeaway.
Nice.
We sat and watched the old Dolph Lundgren Punisher. So I know.
Well,
but, that's another episode as well. We're foreshadowing people.
No, it's not.
We're going to talk about the Punisher.
No, we're not. We're not going to talk about the Dolph Lundgren Punisher.
Yes, we are. But anyway, so I knew of the Punisher character. I knew he was part of Marvel. I knew of his existence. I knew he was around. But for him to appear in the animated series, especially given how violent the character was in the comics at the time, it's like, that was a surprising choice. And they even addressed the fact that he shoots first and never asks questions. They really did push that across. But yeah, carry on.
Oh shit, where was I going?
Your next favorite storyline in anything Spider-Man?
Well, it's got to be Venom, isn't it? It's got to be the symbiote.
The Venom saga, yes. Are we talking comic book or are we talking animation? Because I was going to say both are good. They're very different from each other. I like the way the animated series handled it very nicely. It introduced the character in a believable way for a Spider-Man cartoon. Yeah. Because the way it was done in the comics, like through the Secret Wars and all that kind of stuff, it was like that hadn't even happened in the animated series at that point. So it's like, do they want to quickly rush that and then get to the Venom, or do Venom now and build up to the Secret Wars?
Yeah, they did it right for the cartoon.
I think they did. They handled it brilliantly. But I will say, as much as I love the handling of it in the show, I do prefer the comic book storyline with Venom's first initial appearance. Yeah. And that's just, I think there was something more powerful about it in the comic books. Just something that hit harder. So, but that's, again, translating a comic book into a kid's show, there's things you've got to lose. And
because he was in the black outfit for ages before Venom turned up.
Yeah, he was. He ended up in the because of the Venom. I wish they'd done it in the animated series where he had the Bagman costume. Yeah, where he's got the paper bag on his head and he's wearing a spare Fantastic Four costume.
That's great.
On the back of it, I think even if it was just for 30 seconds of animation, they should have done that. They should have thrown that in there just as a reference. Granted,
that would have been brilliant.
Granted, if they made the show now, they probably would do something like that now, like just go wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing.
Yeah.
Back then, it was just, yeah. But anyway.
Yeah, get it done. There's toys to sell.
Yeah, there. Yes, yes. Right, your second favorite story choice then?
Oh, well, we just mentioned it briefly.
Sorry, you just said Venom. Sorry, I backtracked.
Yeah.
You just said Venom. Yeah, so on to my second choice. It's probably going to be cliched because, you know, it's very fresh in everybody's mind, but I will have to say No Way Home. The storyline for No Way Home, if you've seen it.
Of course.
I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. It wrapped up the Maguires. Well, I say it wrapped up. It gave conclusions that we didn't have. It gave us the closure we needed with these characters, especially with, I was talking to someone on Game Chat about this the other night. It's the scene with Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
Catches MJ. And she says to him, "Are you okay?" And he goes,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, at that moment, didn't
he? He did it. He caught her.
Yeah.
And it hits you so hard. And I was nearly crying. Every time I watch that scene, it hits so hard. And it's just like, and spoiler alert, Lana, stick your fingers in your ears. You don't want to hear this bit about Spider-Man. Aunt May, that's all I'm going to say.
Oh, Aunt May. Aunt May.
I sat and watched it with my daughter. I was sat on my sofa and it got to that bit and I knew it was coming and I kept saying, don't cry. Don't cry. You made it through the cinema and watching this. You didn't cry. You'll be okay. And when she starts to say, you know, with great power, I'm going again now.
I know. I had a lump in the throat at the cinema.
But yeah, that scene, yeah. See, that's why. I mean, it should have been my number one pick, but I didn't want to lump it in number one because it just seems so obvious. But it really is. In the grand scheme of everything Spider-Man, that and my final choice are kind of hand in hand with each other because they kind of deal with the same sort of thing to a certain extent, like betrayal and the death of a loved one. So, but yeah, that was my second choice. Your third and final choice, Gary?
Secret Wars.
Oh, of course, it was fantastic. So, don't say much more about the Secret Wars.
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean,
it's cemented its place in history. People will see from the intro that I put together for this. There's a scene of the black suited Spider-Man from the Secret Wars cover, and then me kind of recreating it in action figure pose form. So you'll see that.
I loved it in the comic. I loved it also in the 90s cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. Or the 90s cartoon with the Beyonder and Madam Web, which was voiced by Stan Lee's
wife. Yes. Mrs. Lee.
Yes, absolutely amazing that. She was the Madam Web of his life. So
who's supposed to be coming back.
We'll have to wait and see, but yes, that we'll get to a talking point about that somewhere down the line.
We will, yes.
But yeah, so for my third and final choice, I am going to go with the PlayStation 4 Insomniac Spider-Man game.
Ooh.
Which, if you've played it and completed it and you know the storyline, the way they did the Doc Ock stuff was okay. Again, as soon as Otto Octavius enters the room, at some point he's going to become Doc Ock and they're going to fight. It was obvious, blatantly bloody obvious, right?
Yes, but we don't care.
That's true. But there was other storylines going on within that game, the MJ stuff, like their relationship. And I like the way, and I think more films, much like the MCU handled it, I love the way the game didn't do origin story. It did literally like the first mission you do in that game, you take down the Kingpin. And Pete says very clearly during like your web swinging stuff, he says, I've been waiting 8 years for this.
Yeah.
He's been doing the Spider-Man thing a very long time.
Well, yeah, because the satchel missions,
Yeah,
they do it for you. Oh, look, this is what I did. This is what I
yeah,
did. Oh,
exactly.
look at that.
It's funny you should mention that. Me and my daughter were talking about this earlier. We were on about collectibles in video games in general, and how like some of them just seem really pointless.
Yeah,
Like they don't do anything. It's just something. We were talking about Resident Evil. How some of the collectibles in Resident Evil, it's like something you bust your ass trying to get in the game, and all it unlocks in the game is a statue that you just look at, and it's like, oh, that's pretty, and that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Spider-Man collectibles, the backpack tokens, you go and collect those, and you find like a relic from his past.
Yeah.
The one I pointed out was when he gets the broken lens.
Sorry about my cat.
It's okay. Is that Hendrix?
Yes, it is. Our reporter in the
Yay,
field.
Hendrix. Returning co-host Hendrix.
Only trying to show his anus to the world.
Yeah, why not? Well, Spider-Man did have a thing about the black cat, so there you go.
Well, yeah, true. Hey, ow! It just bit me.
He wants to talk about Spider-Man too. Can't help it.
It must be a pain in the arse.
But yeah, so that was my final pick. Was the PS4 game?
God, well, that's just the effect of itself. It was so good.
Yeah, and the way it ended, and the way if you played the Miles Morales standalone game, that was.
I've not played that yet.
It is good, short but very good.
Which
sounds like my sex life.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I will edit that out. I fucking won't. Anyway, moving swiftly on, I think we should, because we're coming up to the 45-minute mark. I think we'll quickly talk about the films, not all the films, because I've not seen all of the films. And then by that, I mean like the made-for-TV movies that happened in the 1980s.
Oh, they were great. In a really cheesy way, they were great.
Exactly. Like I've not seen any of those, so I can't come on those, but we can talk about
Nicholas Hammond,
the Maguire trilogy or the Raimi trilogy, depending on how you want to put it. What should have been the Garfield trilogy, but ended up just being a duo, and what is now the Holland trilogy. Or is it a quadrilogy because he technically appeared in?
Well, yeah,
that's a Captain America film, so it's a trilogy.
Well, yeah, because he was in the Avengers as well. I don't know.
Yeah,
recurring character.
Yeah. But standalone Spidey, we've got a trilogy, so we'll go with that. We'll go with that. But so I remember seeing the original trilogy in the cinemas. The Maguire trilogy, the Raimi trilogy, and they definitely had that unfortunate thing of mid to late 2000s films of, as each sequel happens, there becomes less and less story, more and more spectacle, and more explosions and unnecessary action scenes, because that was what people liked about the previous one. Hands down, I will still say that the Raimi Spider-Man 2 is hands down still one of my favorite superhero movies.
Oh, yeah, it's a great. That's a
very
good one.
much, and not for why people think, not for the action scenes. I like the Peter Parker stuff in that. I like him having to deal with, is he Spider-Man or is he Peter Parker, to the point where he has an existential crisis and he loses his powers.
Yeah.
I thought that was very, very well done. And the way it did the comic book shots, like I'm Spider-Man no more, and it's kind of walking down the alleyway with the suit hanging out of the bin. That was iconic. And I think that scene from that particular film will be remembered forever because it brought that comic book panel to life, literally. The Garfield films. The first one, I liked what they were doing with the character. He made I liked his, it sounds really weird. I liked Maguire's Parker more than I liked his Spidey.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't very chatty or quippy.
No, that's
with Garfield, it was the other way around. I thought his Peter Parker, because he was a skateboarder and all this, that, and the other, was just a little bit too cool. to be the geeky, nerdy Peter Parker, but he nailed the Spider-Man because he had the quips and the jokes and the lines.
Yeah.
And, you know, he sold it more to me as Spider-Man. Whereas then you get to Tom Holland, he's got both, in my opinion. He's nailed both.
He's my favorite.
Yeah, for good reason.
I may sound like I'm jumping on the bandwagon, but well, tough shit. He's my favorite. So
yeah,
deal with it.
To be honest, a lot of people have said that. I mean, I said before, the Holland Spider-Man came out, when people were like, oh, which Spider-Man do you prefer, Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire? And I said, well, it depends really, because if I want to watch a film and focus on who Peter Parker is as a character, I'm going to watch the Maguire films.
Yeah.
Because each one did play around very much with the duality of, the character and responsibilities and all that kind of stuff, like, Uncle Ben's death and all this, that, and the other. It did very much try to get that across, but I felt that Maguire in particular did Peter Parker better than he did Spider-Man. That was just my opinion. So if I want to watch a film about Peter Parker, I'll watch the Maguire ones. If I want to watch Spider-Man doing what he does best at the time, I'd watch the Garfield ones.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I'll watch the Holland ones because I've got both. You've got Peter Parker. I mean, Spider-Man Far From Home. His biggest concern in that film, up to a certain point, is how does he give this necklace to MJ? And then shit goes sideways, and he has to be Spider-Man. And I like that because you see him being a
very comic
guy, nerdy, geeky Peter Parker, but then you get to see him being the powerful, confident Spider-Man at the end of the film.
Yeah.
And it just fucking works. So yeah.
I'll tell you what I did like as well. Okay, Maguire, you get the origin.
Yeah.
Then Garfield comes on and you get the origin again.
Yeah.
With Tom Holland, we don't get the origin. They finally realised we don't need to keep saying the origin. We get it. We know.
Yeah. Sidestepping a little bit, subject matter. This is the one thing I've said about Batman films for fucking years now. His origin, and there's certain superhero origins, right, that are so ingrained into pop culture.
God, that
you don't need to tell people about them in a film. Okay, I get if you want to tell a character-driven story of what drives this character to do what they do as a superhero, like again, Batman. When you do it, when you do it once,
cause the Martha Wayne die again, I'm going to blow my brains out.
Yeah, exactly. But I think unless you're doing a focused character story where you're focusing on what makes this character tick. I've not seen the new Batman, so I don't know whether or not they've done that. But unless you're doing a deep dive on the character's psyche, you don't need to repeatedly tell their origin. We know it.
Yeah.
Marvel realized that with Spider-Man. It's like we can mention something's happened, like we can mention that he was bitten by a spider and he's going around in a costume that he's made himself. He's not been doing it very long, but we don't need the whole bullshit. This is how it happens.
Exactly.
Let's just go. Tony Stark's heard rumors. There you go. And I think going forward, more superhero stuff needs to adopt that idea that unless it's a character like Moon Knight, we don't. If it's
one of the lesser known,
unless it's a character that we don't really know, we don't need such a deep dive backstory wise. Like if it's a character like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, these characters, we don't really need storylines as fans in the 21st century in 2022. If we don't know anything about a character, we're gonna Google it.
Yeah.
Or we're going to watch a video on YouTube, or we're going to listen to a podcast on Spotify. We're going to do our own research. It's not like it was in the 90s where, Wonder Woman is going to make a big screen debut. Most people are going to go, who? Yeah, exactly. But back now, nowadays. Back now, time traveling again. But nowadays we don't have that problem. We got the internet. We can just go, this character we don't know. We'll research it.
Yeah.
Or you've got the shows like Marvel are doing, where rather than if it's a character we don't know, do a show. You've got a longer time to tell a story about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but anyway, back onto Spider-Man as a subject for this 60th anniversary. I think this will be the last topic we'll be talking about as well, because it's going to be a long one.
Spidey deserves it.
The toys of Spider-Man. We touched upon it earlier, talking about going into Woolworths and seeing the Spider-Man action figures. And it's kind of a weird thing how Spider-Man literally saved Marvel. Kind of. Basically, he
did.
Well, in the 90s, Marvel went bankrupt. It's well known at this point, they went bankrupt in the mid-90s. So they entered into a partnership with Toy Biz. If they produced animated TV series, X-Men, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, all that, Toy Biz would release action figures. And Marvel would get a certain cut of the profits of the action figures, and it would help support the shows, which in turn would make more action figures. And this went on for many, many, many action figure waves. We had pretty much the entire cast of the animated series done in.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We even had characters popping up as offshoot lines. We talked about it earlier. Blade, the Vampire Wars line. I had quite a few of those, including Vampire Spider-Man, who had big, massive arms with little tiny back wings sticking off of them, and like a jackal dog face ripping through his mouth. It was really fucking weird. But as a kid, you see this mutated monster Spider-Man bat thing, you're gonna buy it.
Yeah.
And
that's because according to John Semper Jr., Avi Arad was just pushing everything for toy. I want toy of this, I want toy of that, I want toy of this, I want toy of that. I want money.
Yeah.
To the detriment of storytelling.
Yes. But, and this is where this is the silver lining in that little story. After the animated series wrapped up and there was a few more series, Toy Biz started producing different Spider-Man figures here and there. And eventually they went into what they called the Spider-Man Classics line, which was better sculpts, bit better articulation than what we had previously.
Yeah.
And came with little display bases and things like that. And they were cool. They were really nice. And at the time, very early days of the internet, this is like late 80s, late 90s, early 2000s, like 99, 2000, 2001. The internet is a blossoming little flower at this point. Toy Biz got their finger on the pulse. They're checking out like fan message boards and things like that, talking about the figures. And they're going through it and they're switched on. They know what they're doing. And people are talking more and more about like different characters. Like, oh, it'd be nice to get this figure or get this character. But we won't get this one because it's not Spider-Man. So Toy Biz had a light bulb moment. And they started an offshoot from Spider-Man Classics, which was Marvel Legends.
Yes.
And 20 years later, and granted, it's under a different company now. Hasbro now produced them. But 20 years later, Marvel Legends is still going. And this ties back to what I said earlier, that Spider-Man is kind of a gateway for other things within Marvel. Yep. That if Spider-Man the animated series hadn't happened, if the deal with Toy Biz hadn't happened, Marvel Legends, as it is today, right now, with the 60th anniversary figures announced and coming out, and I've seen there's even some people have even reviewed some. It just goes to show that without that character, Marvel would not be as it is right now.
Of course not.
Despite the MCU. Yes, the MCU has definitely become its own thing. But if it was not for Spider-Man in the mid-90s through to the mid-2000s, that 10-year period.
I'd say before then.
Marvel would be gone.
Of course it would.
So I just have to say a massive thank you to the creators of Spider-Man.
Yes.
To Stan Lee.
And to Jack Kirby.
And to Kirby, and to Steve Ditko, and to Todd McFarlane, and to everyone who has worked on Spider-Man in the last 60 years. We here at Calico Productions, as part of Hun, your Geek is showing, we send out a massive thank you to your contribution to not only one of our favorite characters, but quite possibly one of the most popular and famous superheroes that has come out of the last 80 years of Marvel.
I don't think there's an argument. Spidey's it.
Yeah.
Spidey's it. There's not an argument.
Exactly.
X-Men have been popular, the Avengers have been popular, but Spidey started it.
Exactly.
Spidey was the corporate branding.
And I think now with No Way Home and the character's position in the MCU and all of that, I really do think that Spider-Man's possibly best years are ahead of him.
Mm.
You know, they say life starts at 40. Well, I think for comic book characters, life starts at 60 because I don't think Spider-Man is any more popular right now as he has ever been. He's had his ups and downs, as any comic book character has had. I mean, look at some of the Wonder Woman stuff, some of the Captain America stuff. They've had their ups and downs. But I think
so
right
Peter
now,
Parker.
Yeah, exactly. But I think where we sit right now in 2022, Spider-Man is at the absolute peak of popularity. And with Tom Holland, I don't know if he's going to... He says on the Blu-ray, like, if this is his last time with Spidey, then he's had such a blast doing it. So he may or may not be coming back. We don't know.
I don't know. He's getting on now.
I don't know. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. The way No Way Home ended, it's very... it's up in the air of where the character could go, but let's just hope that Marvel don't shoot themselves in the foot. I'd like to see Spider-Man just continue and go for another 60 years. And we'll talk about this when we're in our 90s and we'll be celebrating Spider-Man's 120th anniversary.
Well, the thing we can sort of feel good about is that Kevin Feige's got it.
Oh, he's on the ball with it. He's very on the ball with all the Spider-Man stuff. Very, it's just the right note.
It's bloody good.
Right. We're going to wrap things up here now. We're going to do one last thing. And it's the last thing I wrote down on my little notepad here. Fave Spidey villain, not Venom or Carnage. Those are just too fucking obvious. Best Spider-Man villain, Venom. Oh yeah, because you're not a walking cliche, are you?
Right, got you.
So go on then, Guy. Who's yours?
Kingpin.
Oh yes, I can agree with you on that one to a certain extent. From the
Five.
But I think for me, out of all of Spider-Man, not counting Venom, for me, hands down, and again ties into No Way Home, it's Green Goblin.
Oh, Green Goblin's great as well.
He hurt Spider-Man more than most. He took away his love. And there's something about a villain who will go to that extreme that just does it for me. Like the Willem Dafoe version, I think finally they got that character right in No Way Home. The way they ended things for that character, the way he played that character essentially for the second time around.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it?
You know, he finally got to go full on Dafoe with it. You know, he Dafoe'd the fuck out of it.
Oh God, yeah.
That laugh alone, when I hear that laugh, it makes my hair stand up. It's shivering. But yes, so happy anniversary, Spidey.
Happy anniversary, Spidey. We love you.
And we shall catch you in the next episode of this podcast, which I'm not sure what we're covering yet, but it'll be.
What date is it?
We're shooting out of order, remember?
I know, but what date will it be for the next one?
I don't know. I have to check my calendar. Anyway, I have been Calista Valentine.
And I have been Guy Jester Braithwaite.
Yep, he's been some random guy like always.
And Callie has been the hostess with the mostess.
I thank you. We shall catch you next time. This has been Honey Geeky Show, and until next time, mwah. Bye.
Peace.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.